What's up, everyone? It's Kanan,
It's Jessie.
and we are the Geeky Saiyan Couple. And happy Halloween to everyone that celebrates it that's watching today. For all of our new subscribers, because once again, we've gotten a lot of them. You guys subscribed when I did my Silent Hill reaction, but I'm going to introduce my wife, Jessie. She, technically, you're the one who created the channel. Um, this is the Geeky Saiyan Couple, so Jess is in a lot of videos with me. She's not been in a lot of them recently because, well, they've mostly been horror themed, and she doesn't do horror that well. She likes Resident Evil. She can stand Resident Evil, but like the horror games and all that, she's not into. She's also into the stuff that we're going to be discussing. Um, but she's the one that edits the videos, does the thumbnails, all that stuff. She's the one that posts the community posts. So yeah, she does a lot of the stuff. I'm mostly just the on-screen person, and
I'm the everything else.
yeah, I come up with video ideas.
Well, I didn't mean I meant that wasn't what I meant.
So we've got a lot to cover. So for new subscribers, this is Mysterious Darkness. This is our spooky podcast like show where we talk about hauntings, true crime, um, disappearances, and stuff like that. And I think this is only like the sixth or seventh episode we've ever done because we started this show during the lockdowns. And originally we were doing it weekly, but that's when we were stuck at home and we had time to actually sit down and do all the research for the videos. Now, don't really have that time. Like our last episode was this day last year on Halloween. So maybe one day we'll do this weekly because it does seem like every one of them does well. So we'll see. We will see. And like I said in the other videos, even though Halloween is here and it's going to come and go, still going to play horror games. Still going to play Fatal Frame. I need to get that new Resident Evil DLC for Village. But payday is Wednesday, so that's going to have to wait. So yes, the San Pedro Haunting, or San Pedro. I'm sure there's multiple ways that you can pronounce it. I remember hearing about this case back when I was a kid, when I saw on television a little documentary called An Unknown Encounter. And it was a spooky documentary. It scared the life out of me as a kid. And you can still find the documentary on YouTube. It is on YouTube, so go watch it. It's worth a sit through. Though we're going to go through most of the information that is in that documentary. Other than that, this haunting is not really talked about a whole lot. I think it was featured on on an episode of My Ghost Story, but other than that, you don't really see this haunting talked about. Which is kind of weird, because it's kind of, if it is believed this all really happened, because there's always going to be skeptics. I think there's even some parts of this case, like when I showed you the documentary for the first time, where even you are like, I don't know about that.
Whereas some things, it's just, you really couldn't understand. Like, there was no way to explain. But there was some things just like, yeah, I don't know.
Like, there's some stuff in this where you just want to say, oh, that's bull crap. They were just trying to become famous. And really, none of the people involved in this are really that well known. Dr. Barry Taft is, because he's been a parapsychologist for many years. And he's been featured on a lot of programs. But I don't think there's anything else we need to talk about far as the channel goes. No.
Not that I know of.
Um,
This
okay.
is our first one to have our new setup, though.
It is?
I think so. Like all the new stuff. New stuff.
Oh yeah, you're right. I mean, we didn't have this microphone last year. And
The
all
camera's different. Like,
yeah.
we've had quite the upgrade since the last improved one.
Yeah. We're doing the colored light this time and all that. Okay, so we've got a lot of information. So hope you guys have got a snack, a drink. We've got our water here. We've got the notes up. So yes, I will be reading notes because I can't remember all this verbatim out of my head. I sometimes forget what I want to talk about in the video. But anyway, if you guys enjoy our content, please hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, click that like button, leave a comment. Okay, we got all that out of the way. Let's get into the San Pedro haunting. So for the most part, the San Pedro haunting started out just like any other ghost story, really. A desperate single mom, trying to make ends meet, who started reporting strange occurrences in her home. Anything ranging from objects being thrown across the room to floating disembodied heads to a full body apparition. But, and like I said, this was the late 80s, early 90s. So, unlike most ghost stories at that time, this spirit was unusually aggressive to the point where it was one of the handful of cases where it was reported that a ghost tried to murder someone. So all this started roughly in the fall of 1988, November 17th. Jackie Hernandez moves into a small house in San Pedro. She was, from what I've read, recently divorced at the time, and she was pregnant with either her second or third child at the time that she first moved in. Now, of course, she eventually gave birth while still living in this house, but they don't really give a full timeline of that, of when things started and when she gave birth and all that. But yeah, she would later say that she was always the type that was scared of being alone. She said she wasn't scared of ghosts. She was scared of someone breaking into her house, which I can kind of agree with. Fear the living, not the dead. She would say, though, moving into this small house, she wasn't afraid, though she could feel there was some kind of presence in the house. So the first reported incident was witnessed by Jackie and some friends that she had over, and it's when she had gotten up and she was either walking into the kitchen or just another part of the room, and she walked by her desk and a pencil holder slid off the desk and fell into the floor. All the pencils went everywhere, and she swears up and down that she was nowhere near the desk. Like, she didn't bump into it or anything like that. So that was the first thing that is really talked about in any kind of report of the first occurrence. Then you skip to February of 1989, and this is when Jackie reports that she first saw an apparition of an old man sitting on her kid's bunk bed. She said every time she had seen him, he was always cross-legged, and she said he literally looked like a corpse. His face was haggard. He had a grayish tone to him. And she even was able to describe his clothes, saying that he wore a red flannel shirt that was tucked in, and his pants were high waters, kind of like gas station attendant like pants. And her friends also witnessed more activity, including a painting flying off the wall and flying across the room, landing on the kitchen countertop, and a lamp flying off a table and crashing to the floor. And apparently one of her friends was babysitting her kids, and she experienced a voice telling her not to come into the bathroom because she was heading to the restroom, and then she heard a voice saying, "Don't come in here." And she felt like the apparition would be violent if she went into the room. It's like, well, yeah. So to me, the ghost was using the bathroom. Didn't want you to walk in on it. Now here's one of the occurrences that's really, it gets to that point of, really? Did that really happen? Jackie claims to have witnessed a stream of water coming out of the light switch. So now we're getting kind of out there, like Nightmare on Elm Street stuff. Water coming out of a light switch. Not a light socket or, the plug-ins like the one you flip on the lights on.
I mean, yeah, that I don't know about that one. I've know that there's been shown like water coming out of a light socket, but not
A light switch.
yeah, like a light socket or like even the plugs in the wall, like any of that water can come out through that if it's near a pipe or something, but a switch
Sounds like the Three Stooges are doing her plumbing.
pipes up the wall where the light switches are. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Something sprung a leak. But anyway, eventually after that, Jackie was put into contact with three men. Those three men being Dr. Barry Taft, who, like I said, is a very well known parapsychologist. If any of you have heard of the Entity case that happened in the 70s, he was part of that. Then there was Barry Conrad, a TV cameraman. And then Jeff Wheatcraft, who was a former teacher turned photographer. And so, really, everything really started full speed on August 8th, 1989. I was 2 years old. Were you even born yet?
Nope. We gotta keep going in November.
Okay, so the team came to Jackie's house for the first time and interviewed her, of course. They also interviewed her neighbor, who had also experienced some things. And Barry Taft said that there was a very foul, peculiar odor in the house. And it's not that Jackie was a bad housekeeper, it's apparently something that is reported in some certain cases of paranormal activity. And he also said that the Entity case also featured a foul odor within the house. Jeff Wheatcraft was a skeptic, and he did not believe Jackie's stories at all, especially about the one seeing a disembodied head coming after her. He said, yeah, right, and he was very doubtful that anything was going to happen. And this house, like, I don't have a picture of it or anything, but like it was a very small. It was like a little bungalow house almost. And all it was one story, had a little bitty attic, and it's one of those small attics that was above where the
above
washer, the
above,
dryer are.
but above the ceiling, but like shaped to the roof of the house.
Yeah,
kinda.
like you had like this little door that you like had to push open or slide open to get into it, and like you'd have to stand on top of something to climb up into it. It's one of those attics. It's not the kind where you pull the stairs.
Yeah, that didn't
down.
even have the stairs.
Yeah. So the team and so apparently a lot of activity had been reported coming from the attic. So they investigated the house and went into the attic, and it was a very small attic with nothing really in it but a packing crate, pretty much. And Jeff started taking some photos, and for some reason they gave an idea about taking some pictures over his shoulder. I don't know what that was supposed to do, but all right. And
I mean, I kind of get it. Taking it like where he's not looking, take it over behind him.
yeah, I know.
Because that way, like, if he wasn't looking at something, he could catch something that might be like lurking behind him. That I think that's kind of the idea of that. I kind of get it though.
Yeah. So he started clicking some photos. He took one photo, then two, and then on the third one, right as soon as he clicked the photo, something grabbed the camera and jerked it out of his hands. And of course, he screamed. Apparently, when he came out of the attic, he was white as a ghost. And then when they went back up, they found the lens of the camera and the body of the camera in two separate areas of the attic. Now, of course, Barry Conrad, the TV cameraman, of course, wanted to go up in the attic with his camera, but it would never work in the attic. Every time that they tried to film with his camera in the attic, it never would work. It was also reported that Jeff was pushed from behind, and he said it felt like a bony, skeletal-like hand against his back. Barry Conrad said that he did witness this, and then once they came back out of the attic, they heard loud pounding noises from the attic as if someone was walking around with heavy boots in the attic. And if you watch the documentary, you do hear them. They're very loud footsteps. And then at another point, Jackie claimed that as she was moving the attic, the little door, if you can call it that, like the little hatch or whatever for the attic, as she was moving it, something grabbed it out of her hand. And it's kind of funny. In the documentary, you see this actually happen where Jeff is like standing on some like laundry baskets or whatever, and he's just got his head up in the attic. That's all that's there, and he's making all these noises like "ooh," and he said he saw three bright flashes of light, and then all of a sudden this big black mass started moving around the attic. He said it was like three guys standing in a line together. That's how big it was. So they they investigated the house for a few more nights, and then on August 26, 1989, now this is where things get a little weird, because there is actual photographic and video of this. During another investigation, a red liquid started oozing out of the walls of the house. And like I said, there's both photos and video of this. And apparently some of the liquid was gathered and sent to a lab, and when it came back, it came back as male human blood plasma. And as far as I know, it's never really been decided how this could happen, how pretty much blood was leaking out of these walls. It's not like there was a body in the walls or something like that. And really, you gotta remember, this was 1989. They didn't really have anything that they could put into the house, as far as I know, that could make something ooze out of the house without spending a whole lot of money on it. But I don't know. Like, what do you think about this?
That's just one of the things that really you can't explain it, because one, if there was a body behind the walls, I think they'd know by now.
Oh, yeah.
It would have been
bleeding through the wall either.
No, it wouldn't. Like a solid wall, and for it to come out of like just anywhere, there's really no way to explain it. And if you look at the pictures, there is no explanation. Like, it has to be something not of this world to do something like that, because I mean, even like, if for the fact the tests came back like that,
yeah,
I mean, it's obviously not fake. It's not like the fake Halloween stuff that looks somewhat realistic. Like, there's no way to translate. Okay, well, yeah, then how did you do this? Like,
yeah, because they said it had a very high copper and iodine count to it. So, it's like, what's this doing outside of a human body coming out of the walls of this house?
And the way it was dripped, you couldn't exactly duplicate that yourself, like a random person. Oh, let's go set this up. You couldn't really duplicate it to do like that in the photos and the videos. Like, yeah. There was no way to do it.
Plus, something like that is very hard to
stage.
Well, yeah, because you've got a plan for when it to start dripping. And all that. I don't know. It's just. And
no
one's
weird. Gonna fit behind the wall to set little like droppers or tubes or anything. There's no way. Like, there's absolutely no way.
Okay, so moving on. Later, August 28th, 1989, Jackie was able to capture some pictures of some strange lights in her house. The lights were not orbs. They had shapes to them. She said they looked like little jelly balls that were kind of just floating around the air. She said they would crisscross like kites in a way and just fly all around the kitchen. But it would be the night of September 4th, 1989, when the events of this night would make this more than just another ghost story. So the team received a frantic call from Jackie where things were being thrown at her. And there are some parts of this call in the documentary. She's screaming, saying she can't stay in the house anymore. She needs to leave. She said she was almost about to put the kids in her car and just drive until she ran out of gas. But there are parts of the call where it seems like the spirit is messing with the call. to the point where the team thought the spirit had cut the line because she quit talking because like the call ended. And you can hear them. They're like, it just cut the line, you know. But she did come back on the call, and they said, "Hey, we're coming." They did state, "We're gonna come get you," but apparently, when they showed up, she was hoping, be like, "Okay, grab your stuff, let's go." No, they wanted to go ghost hunting. So that night, Jeff, Barry Conrad, and another member of their team, Gary Boehm, arrived. Jackie said she had heard moaning and talking from the attic. A door had shut on her. Books and toys had been thrown, and the lights in her house were flashing on and off. So it sounds like your very stereotypical ghost story or haunting. So apparently, when they first arrived, uh, everything was really quiet. Nothing was really going on. In the video, Jackie says something like, "Oh, it's a wimpy thing. It comes out when I'm here alone, but when everyone else is here, it doesn't want to come out." So Jeff and Gary went into the attic, and Conrad decided to stay downstairs since his camera never seemed to work. And all Jeff and Gary had were Jeff's camera, a photo camera to take pictures, and a flashlight. And while they were up there, Conrad, Jackie, and her neighbor all heard what sounded like someone snapping their fingers like that. And they said it was like almost like it was being snapped right in front of their face. And, they were like, come down here. There's something going on down here. Come down, come down. And when they went to leave, all of a sudden Jeff lets out a scream. And Gary couldn't see, so he started taking photos so he'd use the flash to see what was going on. And what he saw was Jeff, and at first he said he thought Jeff was just standing there. But he said once he got a better look, he was like standing at an angle. And what he didn't realize until he got closer is that Jeff had a clothesline cord wrapped around his neck, and it was hanging off a nail protruding from one of the rafter beams. And in some of the pictures, you can see that he is off the ground, but the look on his face kind of looks like he doesn't really know what's going on, and he's actually got one of his legs wrapped around the beam. So many kind of claim that that's what kind of gave him more time for Gary to get to him, because if Gary hadn't been there, many claim that Jeff would have died.
It sounds like for that with his, because I know when you've showed me it, him putting his leg around it would have been, even if he didn't really, the look on his face of him not knowing where he was, his subconscious was acting. Like, him putting his leg around was probably his subconscious going, okay, you need to survive.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's, because if he didn't know it was where, but his body would, I mean.
Yeah. So Gary said he actually had a hard time getting Jeff down. He actually had to bend the nail to get him down. And when Jeff comes out of the attic, he's out of breath, and the clothesline cord is still around his neck, and it was tied into a very specific knot, and it was twisted so it would be tighter, and then he was hung. And in the video, you can see he has got a red line all the way around his neck. And he also said that, like, for a few seconds, everything went black, and he didn't remember being hung. He did not remember it happening. As the night went on, he also started suffering from several headaches. And other things happened as well. Apparently, as Conrad was filming, a ball of light showed up in his viewfinder, not in front of the camera, actually within the viewfinder. And then he said what felt like a jolt of electricity went around him, and he blacked out. And then also, Jackie had moved her kids out to the front porch, just, to keep an eye on them. She didn't want them inside the house. And they looked at, I think it was her youngest, and the child had a red, like, smudge on her forehead. Um, and apparently Jackie had said something like, I don't care what you do to me, leave my kids alone. Don't touch my kids. And then she said when that happened, she figured it was the ghost saying, hey, don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me not to mess with your kids. She freaked out, rubbed it away. So it was never figured out what exactly it was. Um, but after that night, Jackie and the team left the house. And soon Jackie would move from the house after that. That was the last time Jeff and all the others ever stepped foot inside the San Pedro house. But the story does not end there. Reviewing the footage from that night, several flying lights were seen. And if you look at the lights, of course, some could say that they're bugs. But the thing about these is that you don't see any wings. Because usually when a bug flies by, you can see its wings flapping. They also could have been fireflies or lightning bugs, as we call them around here, but in that area of California, they're not there. They don't have lightning bugs. And also, later in the case, they saw several of these pea pod like lights. They looked like three little cotton balls flying through the air, and some would even fly into Jackie's head. So they were really in her head. So in October of 1989, Jackie and her kids moved to Weldon, California, which is nearly 300 miles away from San Pedro. She moved into a mobile home, but she very quickly realized that things were not normal, because in April of 1990, she started realizing that the ghost had followed her. It started with bizarre scratching sounds heard from a storage shed out back behind her house at night, to seeing strange lights again. Her daughter's bed actually caught fire after they spotted a black shape in the hallway of her house. So that's not good. It went from a red smudge on the forehead to setting the kid's bed on fire. Also, her new neighbors also heard and saw things, strange knockings, flashing lights, and while they were moving an old television out of the storage shed, which was unplugged, they saw the face of the old man in the television. So, with all this going on, it wasn't long until Conrad and Jeff came to Jackie's new home on April 13th, 1990. And despite almost being killed by the ghost, Jeff said that he wanted to see this case through, because he said people asked him, why in the world, after what happened to you, you got hung, you almost died, why are you going chasing after this woman and her ghost? And he's like, well, I want to see this through. And of course, not long after arriving there, they did witness a black shadow moving in the storage shed. And later that night, Jackie, Conrad, Jeff, and a neighbor of Jackie's decided to use a Ouija board to try and get answers. And we all know that using a Ouija board is such a great idea. Now, personally, I think the ones that you can buy in retail stores that are
in the game section.
Yeah, that are made by Parker Brothers and made in a factory somewhere by just people who work in assembly lines and all that. I do not think those things have any power whatsoever. Now, if you get a handmade one bought in like a tarot shop or something.
Something handmade, hand carved, or even I've heard of people hand making them like with just like paper pieces. Like anything that's personally made, not made in made and manufactured in mass. That's seems to be a difference.
Yeah. So, like I said, even where I work, we sell Ouija boards. I do not think that thing is going to have any power whatsoever.
They won't. One of those would not come in a 1,000-mile radius of my house.
Even one made by Parker Brothers.
I don't want that either.
So apparently, while they were doing the Ouija board, they started getting full responses to questions as the room got cold and the table started to shake, and the candles were blown out and all that. So, from what they got from the Ouija board was the spirit said that he had been murdered, held underwater in San Pedro Bay in 1930, and when asked how many ghosts are among the living, it spelled out, "Phantoms fill the skies around you." So that's a nice thought. The spirit was filled with hatred, apparently, and Jeff asked, "Why are you focusing on me?" And it said, "Because you are the likeness of my killer." And when asked if there was anyone it felt hate for, it spelled out Jeff's name. And right after that happened, Jeff was then lifted off the ground and thrown against the trailer wall. Some thought Jeff was dead at first, but he was okay after a few minutes.
It's pretty much just had the wind knocked out of him, pretty much.
Well, did this really happen?
If it did, though, like, I'm saying, like if...
Did a man really levitate off the ground and hit the trailer wall?
Yeah, but what I meant is the way it sounded. If he did hit the wall that hard and he thought he was dead, he just had pretty much blacked out and the wind knocked out of him all at once.
Yeah. So after getting this information, Barry Conrad decided to do some research, and he did find records from the year 1930 that the body of a man named Herman Hendrickson was found in the waters of San Pedro Bay. And his cause of death was a skull fracture, but a lack of evidence had it listed as an accidental death, even though it was obvious that there was foul play. He was a seaman, and some say the knot used in the clothesline cord that was used to hang Jeff was a common knot that fishermen and seamen used. So Jackie started getting restless because there was just nothing really being done. I have a feeling she started feeling like the guys were just playing ghost hunters and not really doing much to help her. Even though I don't think Jackie ever said that herself, but it just kind of came off that way. So
part of her probably did feel that way.
Yeah. So Jackie and her kids moved again in June 1990. They moved back to San Pedro, but this time it was in an apartment building. Jackie knew the spirit was there right away, but she did have the apartment blessed, and of course it didn't work. Now, this next part is really amazing if you watch the documentary. Jackie took some pictures of some glowing orbs and many say it's some of the best ghost evidence that's ever been recorded. And that's because if you look at the photos, the orbs are producing their own light. Literally, they're hovering above the carpet, and you can literally see the light shining on the carpet. They're producing shadows. One of the orbs is actually producing a shadow on one of the other ones. Also, the lights are not on the wall. They are away from the wall. Many experts that were looking at it were like, they're like, I don't know what these lights are, but I can tell you what they're not, and they're not being produced by any other kind of light source. They're just a light that's there, and the fact that it's producing its own light is something that many paranormal investigators look for when they look for orbs. One way you can tell if an orb is either dust or a bug or an actual legit orb is if it's producing its own light source. So yeah, if you ever have a chance to go look at those pictures, there's something else. They're very interesting. And plus, remember, this was 1990. Technology at that time was not there to
create anything like this.
Yeah. So, what makes this case even more interesting is that not only was the haunting victim experiencing stuff, but the team that was investigating was also experiencing things at where they lived. And in July of 1990, Conrad and the others started experiencing activity at an apartment that I think either Conrad lived in or him and Jeff lived in together. They would leave and go do a job or go eat and can come back, and then like they said that they always knew when something was going to be going on. if they'd come back and something would be out of place. And like watching the documentary, they're literally just walking around this apartment and stuff is just randomly happening one after the other. The gas burners on the oven would turn on by themselves. Scissors were left on the bed or in the floor. A pack of bullets were left on the stove. A window had been shattered and they threw away the glass out in a dumpster outside the building, came back, and one of the shards of glass that they just threw away was sitting on a typewriter. Photos were rearranged. A broom was left on the stove. The ghost really liked leaving stuff on the stove. They left a pencil and a piece of paper, hoping the ghost would leave them a message, and later it was found on the stove, lit on fire.
Well, there's your message.
Jeff was still being attacked. He was being pushed. He was being pushed up against the wall. There's a scene where the lens of Conrad's camera was actually marked by some black ink. Now, one very interesting part was being a TV cameraman. Conrad had an editing bay in his apartment, and there are these 3 buttons that were constantly lighting up. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 in sequence. Now, what I got from what is explained is that they're able to go in and look at the sequence and can tell if it's a computer doing it or if it's someone manually pushing the buttons themselves. And what they found was, with the timing and of the sequence and all that, someone had to physically be pushing those buttons for them to light up like that. So yeah, very strange. So following all of that, since then, because this is really where the documentary started wrapping up, it was pretty much stated that the activity started to really die down. Jackie is no longer scared of it, but doesn't think it'll ever go away. And despite being terrified many, many times, she does feel glad that she was able to experience something like that. There was also some small stuff, like it seemed like the activity would only happen at night, and then once daytime came, it would go away. I can personally say with some of the stuff I've experienced, that's bullcrap. If your house is haunted, or if you are haunted, usually it's the person that's haunted, not the place. It doesn't matter what time of day it is, something's going to happen. I've seen stuff happen in broad daylight.
So have I.
Yeah. It's not like some mystical thing that only stuff happens at night or the witching hour.
I mean, sure,
like
I mean, I've read stories and stuff like that where stuff, sometimes more things do happen at night, but if you're active at night, that's more than at night than during the day, then that's kind of when, if you have something around you, that's kind of when it's going to happen. A lot more at night than during the day. I mean, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. And so there's always been a lot of stories of ghosts following people, and that's mostly because the person is haunted, not a house, not the place. There's a very good chance Jackie could be psychic, and so that's why this ghost latched onto her. But it doesn't explain why it was so violent towards her. Now, of course, it claimed that there was also something that said in the Ouija board session that it was doomed to wander. So for some reason, this ghost wasn't allowed to go to the afterlife. So it was very angry. And then, of course, it says Jeff looked like his killer, so he just hated Jeff by default. But really, after these events in 1990, there's really nothing else that I could find on record that says the haunting continued. And in some cases, hauntings do just stop. Could it have been a poltergeist, which is more of a consciousness thing? It could have been. Was it just Jackie going through a divorce, being a single mother? Was she manifesting things? Maybe.
I could have contributed to it because that would have been like negative energy from her that could feed into whatever that was.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing you were saying about how they said that that the spirit was angry and he was doomed to wander forever. Well, what if that, like, yeah, obviously it pointed that he was murdered because of what was found, but what if he wasn't a good person in life to begin with?
Well, I mean,
that could have been something factored into why that spirit's the way it is. Like,
yeah.
that his anger could be because, I mean, someone took him out because he wasn't a good person.
Yeah.
I mean, there's many things, and we never know, because those are too old of records to actually know what that person would have been like.
Yeah. So yeah, that's really where the case ends. Like I said, nothing has really been talked about it for a while. I mean, I've seen some YouTube channels cover it, not in great length. There's sometimes information that's left out that I wish wouldn't be, because it's a very interesting case, if all of it's true. Could some of it have been spiced up for, to tell the story? Yeah, always.
Yeah, there is quite a few things, but there's a lot in this that you really can't explain. Yeah.
And, personally, both me and Jess do believe in ghosts, because we both have seen stuff. We told our own personal ghost stories in the very first episode of this series. But a lot of the stuff you see on television or on these ghost shows where they kind of dramatize stuff, it doesn't really happen like that. It's not that hardcore, really. I mean, of course, we don't have a vengeful or angry spirit or anything, but it also does not happen a lot. It's very rare.
And when you watch ghost shows, not every room is dark. People actually have electricity and lights. So that's the other thing that bothers me about our shows.
She's talking about the show Haunting. Great show. But it seems like whenever...
does no one have any electricity? Like, I don't know, the one we watched the other day, she was brushing her hair and had a tiny lamp. Okay, that lamp generates a lot more light than what was shown in that screen.
Yeah, pretty much to set the tone, they darken the rooms when the spooky stuff happens. And it's like, oh, I'm cooking dinner and the kitchen is completely dark. That's
with like a tiny lamp on. Like, that's what it looks like. So it's like...
yeah, all this. And I mean, and then there's small stuff. Like, there's some times where Jess says the house is darker than usual, so she's creeped out just to walk to the kitchen. Which, I mean...
it happens sometimes. I mean, it's just... it also doesn't help also, like, since where we live, I mean, there's no street lights, so there's some days that it just seems like darker than usual because there's cloud cover, so it makes the sky not as light out too. So there's just some nights it's just it's a little creepy.
And then there's that one night where I was putting Luna up, it was raining, and I could have sworn I heard what sounded like a music box playing out in the woods. I was like, nope.
At first, I think you had asked me, do you have anything packed away that would make... no, because I wouldn't have touched it, so...
Yeah, because a lot of her stuff is packed away outside in storage, so I thought maybe something had went off, and because it sounded like a freaking music box playing out in the woods, and I was like, no, let's go, girl. We're going to bed.
I think you said Luna was like at your side, and she's like, bed. Yeah. she was not having any of that either.
And, well, guys, that is it for this episode of Mysterious Darkness, our little Halloween special. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, I wish we could do these more often. It's just that with both of us working full-time jobs, it's just not possible right now. So for right now, it'll be just our Halloween tradition. But maybe eventually, maybe if we can get the channel to do even better than it is, when we can afford to not have to kill ourselves at work, we can do them more often. But, so yeah, hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please, once again, hit that subscribe button. We still cannot get over the amazing growth that the channel literally did in like one day pretty much. It slowed down a little bit, but like we're still getting constant, like not like 60 a day like we did the one day, though that'd be nice. But we're getting new subscribers faster than we were. And like I said, our main goal is 1,000 subscribers right now. Like once we hit 1,000, we'll set another one. But a lot of things will change once we hit 1,000. So we're very excited that it's like our channel's finally getting noticed a bit more for more things besides just Ruby.
Which was our initial goal to begin with. Which
Yeah.
our very first video, like and stuff, we really explained that too. So
Yeah. I cringe thinking about that
those
first
videos
video.
are so bad.
But it's all we had. But
Everybody starts somewhere.
yeah. But hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully we kept it interesting enough for you. Go watch An Unknown Encounter. It's a really good late 90s spooky haunting documentary. Let us know in the comments what you think of this case. If you think any of it is legit, or if you think the whole entire thing is bullcrap. Very interested to hear your thoughts. And yeah, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, click that like button. Those likes help so much. As always, guys, this is Kanan.
This is Jessie.
We love you all very, very much. Stay safe out there, especially if you're going out tonight, because there's more than just ghouls and goblins out that come out on Halloween. So be safe of drunk drivers and anything like that. Just be safe and take care of yourselves, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.